He's at the front. We are recording. If you need to fix your camera or change your picture, and then could you do me a favor? Could you pin Gabino, please? It's yeah, it's on that option, and pin him. There you go. And then I'll also pin Cynthia. And she's gonna be coming over here. It's a pin them both. Woo! This is my sister. En serio, en serio. Qué gusto verte, cariño. No, no, mama. So, sit here, mama. The camera's over there.
What's up, Jenny?
Sorry, you're not seeing this. I'm sorry. I normally don't do this unprofessional thing right now, but I gotta do it because I'm gonna forget and she's not gonna get her on her. So anyway, so Cina. Yes. Se me está yendo la voz. Oh no. So I know it's been that kind of week. Sorry. You're not seeing this. Sorry. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Yeah, pants? Oh my God, it's like we're doing it like Chicago. Oh, girl, your parents are here. They're representing. Come on down, I'm sorry. All right. This is for you. I'm hoping to get another one of those, but this is for you today. Oh my gosh. Okay, now I can be a big mouth, but just for a little bit. So, I'm so excited. I'm gonna start crying because this is such a huge thing. To have two Bram Stoker winners, amazing human beings, Latinos, Puertorriqueños, Potorros, here with us. And it is just, oh my gosh, this is such a huge thing. See, you don't understand. There's so few of us in the business, and I'm not even traditionally published at this moment here, this brother there. We all know each other. So we got Pedro on the call also, and Al, who has written a phenomenal nonfiction collection. He came to speak, 3 weeks ago? So he's helping me MC. Al, what's your last name? Julius, who's a faculty member at World Language. And check this out, y'all. Check this out. Vino el Boo. What's up, Boo? Tú eres esposo. Vinieron los estudiantes. Aquí están mis estudiantes. A little scared. What's up? So, yeah, so we're here to talk about, so I'll let them introduce themselves, but I think a lot of you know who they are. And it's such an honor. How's the camera angle there? Such an honor and a privilege to have them here at Harold Washington. With, the namesake at Harold Washington is historic. And he was very much about diversity and inclusion, which unfortunately the publishing industry isn't always that way. And so they're going to speak about their experiences, and see, a goddess. She was just recently traditionally published. Her book just came out yesterday. Is that right? Yes. So, who wants to start? Can you decide? So I thought maybe you could talk for 5 minutes or read for 5 minutes. So they're gonna read. Okay, start because I kept you waiting. Why don't you go ahead? They're gonna read for about 5 minutes or more. If Gabino's really rocking, he can do a little more. And then she's gonna read, and then we're gonna ask questions. Okay. And maybe the president of the college may pop in, but he's running a little late.
I didn't even know we were reading. So yeah, hold on. We got to find something to read.
You can just tell jokes, man. You funny.
Yeah, no, that's a lot of pressure. That's yeah. Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. Hold on.
He's really fun. If you haven't followed him on Twitter, he is funny. And he's like me. I can't say it now because it's gonna sound really bad. He's got a potty mouth like me. And probably Cina, do you have a potty mouth too? Sometimes?
When people aren't looking. She's got a front.
Oh, she's got a high front. For real. I say it like yeah. No, ahí viene. He said he knew what he was going to do. ¿Quieres un agua? ¿Ahí hay agua? There's okay. Okay. Ay, qué chulo. Mira, este amor es mi esposo. Mi esposo. I'm telling you. You were reading her book the other day. I was so jelly. I was like, look at this one. My husband doesn't read my work. My son does, but my husband's like, read it to me. I'm like, "Chinga tu madre, I'm not reading nothing." Sorry, I mean, we're just BSing.
Oh, it's good to see Gerardo because he's always in the hustle, making stuff happen. So shout out to the husbands and wives of all
Amen,
out
amen.
there. Yeah, so have one of these. So you're gonna get like the first. I mean, it won't be out until August, so this is probably the first reading of this book. So
Yeah, what's
yeah.
up?
And also I picked a very short thing, so it might not be 5 minutes. I hate listening to myself, so if it's less
But
than
we
that,
love listening to
my
you, guys.
apologies.
We love you. Already, right?
Well, you know me, so it's like a happy-go-lucky, funny, tender middle grade story. This is chapter 19. The ocean roared, rivers overflowed, the raging mud-colored water becoming a violent monster that tore through homes, demolished bridges, and left entire families scared and isolated or dead. Power lines went down everywhere. Their electric cargo suddenly let loose on the world. The grid, old and weak, had been on its last leg for decades, and Maria left every corner of the island in the dark. People flocked to the shelters, churches, government buildings, and city arenas filled with desperate souls. Then the shelters ran out of cots. They gave people bottled water and little else. People were scared, angry, anxious. Tempers flared, fights broke out. Everyone felt useless and at the mercy of something violent and hateful that they couldn't control. Hospitals ran out of beds, painkillers, suture thread, and gauze. People kept coming. Some missing fingers after weird accidents, some bleeding from head wounds caused by projectiles, some carrying their dead children, spouses, brothers, and mothers, their grandparents, their neighbors, their friends. The doctors and nurses did what they could, but it wasn't enough. The ghosts of those killed under the weight of the wood, bricks, cement, and plaster clung to whatever was left. They were angry and desolate. If anyone rebuilt where they died, there'd be hauntings. Yacked out or air conditioning units that hung underneath windows like rusty fruit. Wind and water entered the gaping holes left behind and destroyed sacred mementos, ruined walls, and soaked the floors. The ocean swallowed boats and destroyed houses built too close to the shore in places like Dorado, Santa Isabel, Luquillo, Fajardo, and Loíza. Sharks, dolphins, and other sea creatures washed up on shore, dead, and more often than not, horribly mutilated. Most of the carcasses had chunks missing, and some showed large teeth marks. Those who lived on the coast knew that they'd have to walk the shore once the storm had passed, because on top of the horrible smell, the dead creatures always brought bad luck. Trees broke or were ripped from the ground with the roots still wrapped in dirt. Palm trees bent until they could bend no more, and then they snapped. Their coconuts, projectiles that crashed against homes and shattered windshields and windows. Plants were obliterated. Crops vanished. Papaya and banana trees were the softest, so they were the first to go. The wild wind hollered across the decimated fields, the sound drowning the wails of the farmers who had, once again, lost everything. In the mountains of Jayuya, a girl was born at around 10:45 p.m. after her mother went into labor right after dinner. No one had a signal. The landline was dead. The street had turned into a raging river. They couldn't go to the hospital. The woman's younger sister helped her through the birth. The baby girl emerged, wet, purple, angry, and screamed. She looked healthy. While cleaning her, her aunt noticed her mouth. The newborn girl had rows of tiny pointy teeth all the way to the back of her throat. The baby's father had never been in the picture, so the woman's sister had to take care of it. She took the baby to the garage and used a tire iron to bash its soft head in. It was rough and her hands shook, but it was what needed to be done. She left the baby under a tarp to bury her in the morning. The baby, that wasn't the only one. In a small house near the beach in Loíza, a Black woman gave birth to a premature girl with a 3-inch horn protruding from the right side of her forehead. She suffocated it against her sweaty chest as the father cried in a corner and prayed to a God that had always ignored them. The wind carried the sound of the mother's scream over the mangled animal carcasses that littered the shore. And in Guanica, a mother lost her life when the baby inside her used a mouthful of sharp teeth to chew its way out. The woman's partner, a much younger woman, used a kitchen knife to murder her newborn son. Then she took off her golden cross, stuffed it in the baby's bloody mouth, and sat in the dark to wait for morning. The same story repeated itself all night. Newborns with small mouths full of teeth like piranhas, babies with horns, squirming fetuses with claws as large as their tiny pink bodies, newborns coming out of the womb speaking in tongues. They were all killed by someone who was supposed to love them, or who at least loved their mothers. Many had crosses or rosaries stuffed in their mouth. Others were subjected to bloody rituals by those who knew that power that had made them was older than the God those who used the rosaries and crosses prayed to. Practitioners of voodoo, mesa blanca, santeria, and palo mayombe performed rituals to keep the demons that came with the storm away. Some heard it scream and some didn't, but they all felt its presence. In Carolina, a woman saw a figure standing in front of her window. It looked like a very big man made of black ink. Her 7 dogs went berserk and tore into her. She died screaming their names, begging them to stop, feeling the pain of their betrayal in her heart as much as the pain of their teeth on her flesh. No one heard her. No one could check in on her for a while. The dogs calmed down as soon as the figure vanished, but nothing to feed on her for days. The same happened with family and farm animals, sometimes with deadly results. Anyone who managed to survive such an attack would later recall the dark figure and a strange piercing shriek. In other parts of the island, people with no pets also saw the same figure. Some died, some lost their minds. Some took the nearest sharp object and drove it into an eye socket or slid it across their throats. It was everywhere, destruction. There was screaming and crying and fear and blood and merciful murder and brutal death in many homes. Accidents happened. Flesh blossomed into deep wounds everywhere. Blood flowed, pain, fear, grief, and panic reigned. The island became a playground for death, a place of death and angry ghosts, a shuddering house of bone and rain. The wind blowed, the wind howled, the wind hound and howled and howled. That's it. I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah, yeah. All right, Gabino. I'm gonna push back a little bit. Hard. Well,
Right?
that, okay, you have a beautiful reading voice. Yo, snaps if you love hearing his voice. Come on, come on now. So we are joined by Dr. Lopez. Come on and say a few words, Dr. Lopez. I know you were in a meeting.
Let's do it, let's do it. First of all, welcome.
Over here, sir, so they can see.
Thank you.
So let me, por aquí, por aquí.
Where's the camera?
Hermosa, muy hermosa. Yes. So this is Al Julius. He is a faculty member and he teaches AP English. These are his high school students that have come, most of them, some are, a lot of them are mine. And yeah, so this, so good. And some people, like, this is a professor from Portland, University of Portland. And then this is a fan of Cina's who saw the poster and came in. From the
Wow,
community. Beautiful, right?
great.
All right, but
So welcome. So what high school?
World Language High School
World Language High School, which is where again?
in Little Village.
Little bit.
¿Te vieron en el bus?
In the bus, okay. I just met with Enlace Chicago.
Oh, yeah, we have, had one.
Yeah, so they're a great organization. Well, welcome to Harold Washington College. We're thrilled that you're here. It's great to have such good guests and our very much esteemed faculty member here, Jesus. We know her as Jesus. She's wonderful. She always brings these opportunities to the college. And let me just say that we're very, very happy to have her here and to be able to provide these opportunities. Thank you for you and the high school students that are have come to take part of this. I am a proud graduate of Harold Washington. I was a student here many years ago. Came in as an undocumented first generation, actually no generation, because my family and I migrated from Mexico. And ended up here and had a great experience. And because of that experience, I decided to become a college president.
Right.
But never did I know I was ever gonna come to Harold Washington back as a president. I mean, when you're a student, I was just thinking about, I was taking it one semester at a time, finishing my associate's degree, And then I did my bachelor's, my master's, and my PhD. Like 30 years later, I decided to come back here. And I'm thrilled and honored to be here. We have great faculty, like this one here. And other faculty, our student services team is really dedicated to our students. I know a lot of people say that.
They are.
But we are, all of us. I
Yeah.
think many of us come from the community.
Right.
Chicago. So we understand how it is to have gone to our Chicago public schools, how it is to have lived and sometimes I say survive in our
Survive, that's right.
right, and then come here. So our faculty, our staff are very, very much in tune with what's happening in our community and are here because they want to be here.
That's right.
They have options. They also have master's degrees, PhDs, and they can go anywhere. But guess what? They choose to come here. So I'm here just to tell you that we have a great, great college. Those of you who are college students or high school students, I hope you consider coming to Harold. Our students do amazing things. I was just yesterday at the McDonald's headquarters. We had a great panel of our students who have gone through their internship programs that are working with McDonald's and getting a lot of money and getting lots of experiences.
They're
And
not working as a fast food workers.
No, no, no,
Like,
no.
just to be clear.
No, they're managing all these different pieces of the business. And all of them talked about their experience coming out from their communities that they were in. And then coming to the college and doing all these amazing things. So there was a student there who also, an alum, who ended up at Harvard and is now back here in Chicago doing some great work. So on behalf of the college, welcome. We hope you have a good experience and thank you for inviting me.
Anytime, anytime.
And this is my first time in person. I usually just connect.
I know, right? I know.
Yeah.
Hey, you gotta meet the beautiful Cina Pelayo. First Puerto Rican Brown Snooker winner. This is Dr. Lopez. Two beautiful
Right.
people. Okay, you can shake her hand.
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh my God. And then Al too. Al was a speaker. You
Al.
may get to meet him.
So you can-
He did the, he published a book called Endless Steps. Beautiful, beautiful nonfiction piece. But yeah, thank you, thank you.
Well, she always brings great people. And I know, is anyone here from out of state? Does she bring,
He's from Austin,
Okay.
Texas.
okay. Yeah, I know it's great to have the opportunity to bring folks and luckily now through Zoom, we can
Yeah.
go in a little easier than we have had in the past, but thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Dr. Lopez.
I'll stay for a little bit.
All right.
I'd love to hear what.
Yes, I know. All right.
You know, you wrote the review for Craft Stories. 'Cause you're.
You're also a ghostwriter?
The Craft Stories for the Devil. Craft Stories for the Devil. You wrote the review for that,
Oh
right?
my gosh, that may be a surprise. I don't think.
You wrote the, right, Gabino? Did you write a review?
It's not out yet.
Oh my god.
Yeah, the author.
Surprise!
Awesome. Yeah.
I don't know anything about this.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Please, can you go congratulations?
I'm very happy to be here to see these two amazing people, and I'm so excited that I'm like back in town for this.
Yeah.
It's great, but it's also so lovely to see everything that's happening here. It's all very.
We got Paul Trevor coming, please.
You got published, so, tell us about your novel. You got published, Star Review.
Oh yes, yeah. So I have so I'm a poet. Also, I have a poetry collection out, and then I have a book coming out in this June. Craft Stories I wrote for the Devil.
Oh, bravo, bravo. And what was your name?
Ananda Lima.
Ananda Lima. Okay, write it down, everybody. Yeah, you're at
So
lady.
you were, yeah, you were recently, I thought you were recently a Star Reviewer. Congratulations. So I'm gonna just read, from Forgotten Sisters. I have read the prologue quite a few times, so I'm just gonna read probably.
What's your favorite part?
I mean, I like the whole thing. I'll probably just read,
I thought she was gonna say, I don't have a favorite part. Okay.
I'm gonna read a little bit from Forgotten Sisters. This was released yesterday. So I'll let the chapter host. Bodies are decomposing in the Chicago River. People don't like to think about that, to think about long submerged, bloated corpses sinking to the riverbed, but it's happening. It's happening even now, and I wonder if we're happening now with it. Once a submerged corpse rises to the surface, water continues to be absorbed into the skin. Liquid overwhelms the underlying layers, and the result is that the flesh peels away and slips off, carried away by the current. At departure, a waxy, soapy substance produced from one's fat then forms all over the body. In time, bacteria, birds, and other small animals begin to peck and poke, nibble and gnaw away at the remains. And once all remnants have been consumed by creatures, and once the surface of skin and fat slops off bone and turns into foam, then there's no longer fibrous connective tissue to hold on to. And so the skeleton sinks to the riverbed piece by piece. A complete set of bones then comes to rest atop fine sediment, clay, dirt, and topsoil. What was once a person is now part of the river, a body of water that was formed hundreds of millions of years ago when what is today Chicago was covered by the vast sea. Decomposition is slow. I know a lot about the river, perhaps too much. My sister Jenny and I live in a coveted craftsman bungalow along the river in Chicago's Ravenwood community on the north branch of the Chicago River. Recently, I've committed to discovering the source of an incessant dripping noise that has caused me to lose sleep. Perhaps it's coming from the kitchen or one of the bathrooms, either the one on the first floor or upstairs on the second floor. Each of these spaces deserves a bit of a refresh, and I'm fairly good with a can of paint. In fact, this entire house deserves all of the love that I could give it, because the house is sad. I suppose I will get on with it and do some light remodeling, as that will cheer me up, and it will especially cheer up the house. I'm not sure if it will cheer up Jenny. It's been harder and harder to get her to smile since the accident, but I will try to do my best. This is an important house, and the house likes to be cared for in the most appropriate ways. I will make the updates myself. Why should I summon strangers into my home who would scrutinize each of my requests and then send me a quote for 3 times what it should cost me when I could very well accomplish it myself? I don't want people hammering away at the walls of my beautiful home. I certainly don't want anyone disturbing Jenny, any more than she's already been disturbed. The only person I trust to fix things to set them right is me. There are, of course, luxury apartments and condominiums pressed along the river's edge downtown in neighborhoods like River North, River West, the West Loop, and the South Loop. Those are steel and glass boxes with no historical significance. A true house has history. A real home lives and breathes, watches and waits. Each birth into a home is energy that charges doors and windows, floors, ceilings, hallways, and rooms. A rare, historic home kissing the Chicago River isn't just unique, but extraordinary. These homes seldom hit the real estate listings, and if they do, they demand millions of dollars. Grandmother took great pride in this home, so much so that she even framed the page from the Sears catalog from which it came from and hung it in the entryway. It took her months to track down the original listing from the early 1900s, but she found it and took pleasure in telling us it would serve as our reminder that this home deserved care as it has cared for us. The house was built in 1912, and that's how Jenny and I are able to explain away the odd noises and strange sights we experience regularly within these walls. Jenny said it's an old house, and old houses remember.
What? Also, beautiful, beautiful. Oh, this is amazing. Well, we're gonna start with questions and from the audience. But here's the thing: the best payment for these guests is for you to engage with them and ask questions. And Al is also going to be helping me host. And then Dr. Torres is going to be checking out the chat. So you're welcome to unmic and then speak your question. That was beautiful. Yeah. Any questions? Go ahead, Miha.
Thanks for reading, Cynthia. I liked it a lot, and I just wanted to know what inspired you, what's your inspiration for the book?
For Forgotten Sisters, what inspired me was there's an event that took place here in Chicago in 1915. I don't want to say what it is, that will give it away. But I think overall, the tragedy. There have been so many tragedies in Chicago, and Chicago is a city that's built by immigrants. And so I wanted to write something. I wanted to essentially write an immigrant story. And when people think of immigrants, they have a very specific place geographically today of where they think that we come from. But I wanted to showcase that immigrants have built this city. That's right. For as long as the city can go back. So I kind of wanted to go back to history, show an example of immigrants who built the city and this tragedy that happened to them and how they've been forgotten. And we can't forget the people that live and breathe and work here.
But I would say, I'm sorry, I would jump in. I tend to talk a lot. I try not to. That a lot of cities were built with immigrant labor, right, or native labor, and so. But Chicago is particularly proletarian. That's one of the things I love about it. Um, questions for Gabino or Cindy? Come on, Mija, come on in. Go ahead.
Yeah, so just a little bit also to in the mix of inspiration, the Little Mermaid. Yeah,
Yeah, so I write a lot of fairy. So I say I write fairy tale adaptations. They're not a direct goal, but I think my stories are influenced by fairy tales.
Heavily, especially your
Yeah.
first book. Yeah.
Yeah. And so my parents each have a sixth grade education. My father's from Mahuentas, like he was my father died recently, but he's from Mahuentas in Puerto Rico. My mother's from San Sebastian. They grew up in the 1940s, and so my father didn't like school, so they both have the sixth grade education, and so they both only remember when they would recount stories to me. They only remember fairy tales, what they learned in first and second grade. And so these were the stories that they would recount to me frequently, and so it's kind of stuck with me.
That's beautiful. How about you, Gabino? What inspired you to write your latest book?
This is probably the book that took me the longest to write in my entire life. In 1999, I was about to graduate high school, and one of my friend's mom was shot in the face. She was working at a club checking IDs, and there was a drive-by. And we were sad, we cried, we hugged each other, and then as soon as that was done, the anger set in, and we were gonna find whoever did that, and we were gonna kill them. And then we never did because it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
So I always wanted to write a story with that beginning. It's a group of friends, a mom gets killed, and then they actually do pull it off. But it felt like such a sacred story to start with something that actually happened. And I never thought I had the chops to do it. And then finally I was like, maybe if I don't do it now, I still don't have the chops, but if I don't do it now, I might never do it. So let's roll with the punches and get that story out. So
And how long did it take you, Gabino, to write this book compared to others?
Well, this technically was the fastest book I've ever written because I had to crank it out because I was under a deadline, but I started writing it in 1999 in my head. So I don't know, 25 years took me to write that book. Yeah, off and on.
That's beautiful.
How do you protect yourself when you're writing something?
That's a great question.
That is so emotionally charged.
Did you hear the question? So how do you protect
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah. No, I was thinking that I should probably lie to everyone and come up with a very smart answer about your mental health and protecting yourself and being good and kind to you. And I don't. I go where it's raw and where it hurts and where I cry and when I punch the trees and the walls. And then after that, I go walk the dog and I listen to music and I look at the little birds and I play with my kid and I remind myself that I'm still alive and I have good friends and I have a roof over my head and I get to do what I wanted to do my entire life for a living. And that kind of helps. And then the next time that I sit down and write, I'm like, well, here we go again. And then I hurt myself again. So it's an unhealthy gig, but you make it work.
That you do full time. I find that so admirable. But go ahead, Chris.
Well, I can answer a third question. Well, I'm not a writer, but I'm a comedian, so like I'm always like stepping on fire, and I write about like pretty messed up stuff that I see. It's not good sometimes, but sometimes like I talk about some real life stuff, and basically like my dad, he like knew that like like maybe like it can like come fight you with a butt one to like a cop or something. So he told me like to just switch up the names or like switch the narrative. Because he's like, if you do it that way, like no one can really like track out who you're talking about. But yeah, but like that, I just thought of that because I'm like, oh yeah, I worried about that too.
Thanks for sharing. But I think she means something else, and that's because I always tell them, because I teach creative writing and I teach composition, that it's really hard to write about trauma. You have to have the right distance, and because you don't want it to re-trigger you. You know what I'm saying? Um, but I think you need to answer that for yourself. But then from pain is where some of the most beautiful stories emerge too, right? Al, I don't know if you want to contribute.
Yeah, so I think that question to how do you protect yourself psychologically also.
Yes,
becomes a deal.
yes,
So like you're dealing with a lot of like really heavy stuff. But I think it's interesting because in like Gabino's case for The Devil Takes You Home, it's like, yes, it's the psychological like brutality that you have to protect yourself from, but also did you ever, and when I was reading, we were talking about my students, did you ever feel like you were in danger from the cartels? I mean, are you exposing real secrets here? Like, I felt like that sometimes. Or is it just like how much research went into the reality of
Is there a hit
I think I'm lucky because the cartels are busy making money. And I don't think they mind fiction. I think they mind a little bit more being on the news and people talking about Mara Salvatrucha and they have no idea what they're talking about. And I'm not into politics. I'm not reporting on gangs. So I thought about it when I started, messing with the cartels and I was studying their history. And it was clear to me, first of all, I don't think they're reading a lot. And so I thought that was a so if I can figure out how to sell books to narcos, I'm set for they got the money. So and then it was the world of narco corridos, and I was reading into studying that. And I at some point I stopped being fearful because I just needed to tell that story. Shh, hey. We got a package. Hey, enough.
I love it. I love it. None of my students is from the cartel. Don't open it.
I also have an 85-pound pit bull, so it's okay if they want to come knocking at my door.
So plus one of your fans says that you're a big guy, so don't mess with Gabino. Heck, don't mess with Cina either, man. You know what I'm saying?
No, Cina has knives. Don't mess with Cina.
Chicago. I know people who know people who know people.
No doubt. Plus, your boo looks pretty tough too. I don't know, man. You brought the bodyguard with you. That's all I'm saying.
I want to go. Oh my god, my wild father right there. Yeah.
You what? You wild father?
No, how you say my
What is falda? Órale. I heard a wild. Okay, never mind. Pásale, mija. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Question. Go ahead, mija.
Hi, I really like your guys' reading, first of all. But this one goes for both authors. How do you guys keep your writing alive? Like, is there something? I know that some authors have like motivators, like their children.
Okay,
like,
okay.
Parent, like, what helps you keep your writing alive? Like,
Beautiful. Did you get that? She
Yeah.
wants to know what helps you keep your writing alive. That's an excellent question. Who wants to go first?
Like fresh and
Vibrant?
Yeah.
vibrant. I think my problem is there's too many stories I want to tell. And so I know I'm racing against the clock. I'm never going to be able to tell every single thing I want to tell. And so I'm writing like I'm done because I am, right? And
Right.
so
Right.
and I think that's my urgency for. So I feel like I have inspiration because there's so much I want to tell, and I know I have a clock that's just ticking every day, and it's like, well, how many stories can I tell before I die?
Ooh, that's inspiring though. That is legit. I like that. How about you, Gabino? How do you keep it fresh?
I don't know if I do, but it's mostly spite. I'm always angry. So yeah, and I'm angry at myself too, because when I read old stuff, I'm like, this could have been better. So I'm always pushing for it to be newer, fresher, weirder, darker, better, faster. And I don't compete with anybody else. Like I'll celebrate all authors and support any author who is a good person. I don't support racist, homophobes, all that stuff. But
I'm a good person, Gabino. I'm just saying.
everybody else deserves my time and attention and support, and for me to share the spotlight and for me to try to review their books if I can. but they're not competition. My competition is myself. So I'm always angry that I'm not better. So I have to push to be better. And every single book has to be better than the previous one, whether it fails or becomes a bestseller. That's not up to me. I don't care about that part. I care about turning in something that at the end of the day feels to me that it was slightly better than the previous effort.
Nice.
It makes you keep it better, I think.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I love that because I see a lot of writers get into the rat race. And I'm like, bro, I don't want to see any more posts about your book reviews and publications. How are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
And I prefer if writers like you that elevate other writers. Because we
Yeah.
are communal. You know what I'm saying? Like educators are communal. You know what I mean? We love to share. I don't like arrogant writers. I like block them, you know, I'm like, block.
I've never understood the competitiveness because I feel like we're all so different.
Oh
And
yeah.
we all have different stories to
Yeah,
tell.
that's right.
We all have, we have similarities, of course, too, but I've never understood the competitiveness. And I started seeing that like when I did my MFA, and I was like, I didn't get it, and I still don't quite get it because like Gabino, my competition is myself. My next book, I want to challenge myself. I don't want to do the same thing. I want to do something new and fresh and interesting. And I want to like read new and cool stuff from other
Right.
people. And that's why like, oh my gosh, there's another author here. You know, and so I get really excited when I see other authors doing cool stuff. I am so excited because I want more of that. And so I never understood the competitiveness. I'm like, I just want cool stuff to consume all day.
I promote reading a lot too, obviously because I'm an English faculty member, but just in general, because there's such a huge variety of writers out there. Like I love to binge read. I'm actually binge reading Cina right now and binge reading the writer of Dark Harvest. I got you too, Gabino. But I love that. And then seeing the progress as the years go by from writers who do this challenge, it's like do better, do better. I love that. I love seeing that leap in writing. Do you see that? Like from one book to the next, and you're like, damn, kind of like growth, right? Uh, I love that. Juanita, do you have a question for the writers?
No, but I'm appreciating a lot of the comments that you're making.
Are there any questions in the
Nope.
chat?
No, nothing's coming.
Come on, don't be shy, y'all. I know you're all horror fans, or just book fans in general. Especially you, Pedro. I see you. Pedro was a guest a few weeks back. I guess I have a question. As I'm being selfish right now. How do you negotiate that relationship with your editor when they mark up your manuscripts? If you have that kind of relationship, because you've both published a number of books.
Yeah.
You know.
I trust my editor. I trust my agent wholeheartedly.
Your agent also gives comments on your manuscripts?
Yeah. So I trust my agent 1,000%. He reads my work. We have a really good, I think having an agent that you love and trust, I mean, it's a relationship.
Right.
It's beyond business. Like, he'll call me and check on my mental health. He's
Aww.
like today he called me. He's like, I know you have a lot. Are you okay?
Aw, que chulo.
And so it's so important to have that. And I trust him. And then my editor, I trust my editor's Dean Kootz's editor. I think she knows what she's,
Yeah, okay, yes, okay, enough said. I have to walk. Let's get off.
and so I trust that she's going to guide me in the right direction. Whatever she's going to counsel me on, it's for the best for the book, for the readers. And so I'll read it, I'll think about it, and then I mean, the changes that she gave me for Forgotten Sisters, I remember looking at them like, oh, okay. It was like shifting things, and I did, and I loved it.
Good. That's beautiful. But that's well, maybe it's rare. How about you, Gabino?
So all my books up until The Devil Takes You Home were with very small indie presses, and I felt like that was easy to negotiate because you almost always know the editor that you're going to work with.
True.
Like you've had beers with them or shared a plate of tacos with them, so that's and then with The Devil Takes You Home, I was very lucky because it sold at auction. So before we met with every single one of those editors who were interested, I sat down with my agent and she said, you have to identify the elements that you are not changing for anyone, not for a paycheck, not for an editor. So what are those things? And I said, okay, my brown characters and black characters are going to stay people of color. All of my queer characters are going to stay queer. And the Spanish that I use, I'm not going to translate. And she said, all right, you have those three things. I'm only selling North American rights. Now we can do this. It was a little bit of a back and forth between Josh at Mulholland did not try to change any of those things. And then at some point having a conversation about when you land with a bigger press, it's a little bit harder to push the envelope in terms of like violence and racism and all those things. But he had read Zero Saints and Coyotes songs, so he kind of knew that was what I've been doing forever. And he said, we're going to build on the readership that you already have. So I'm going to let you push on those things. For House of Bone and Rain, he sent me one edit that I said, listen, I'm not changing this. It's a scene where someone stabs someone in the face until the blade breaks off. And he said, this is just like way too far. And I said, remember when we chopped off a kid's finger, a kid's toe with bolt cutters in the Devil Takes You Home? That's where you set the bar. So we're not going under that bar at any point in time. We're going to try to push it a little bit further. And then we just laughed it out, and he left it in the book. So it's more of a conversation. I think the most important thing is to find an editor who understands that their work is not to tear you down, is to make your work better and gives you even more tools, so that the book that you turned in, maybe it was decent, maybe it was even good. It shouldn't be good. It should be great. And they have an eye, and they need to help you get even better.
That's awesome. That's brilliant. Good answers. Other questions? Go ahead, Bill.
I have a question for both authors. I was wondering, what advice would you guys give to any aspiring authors? Because I know you guys mentioned that there's so many stories to tell. Like, how do you pick which story to start with?
All right. So how do you, what advice do you have for aspiring authors? And then how do you choose what stories to write?
Don't stop is the advice. Because I have been tempted to stop many, if I had stopped at any point, I would have. And so you just have to keep doing it. You have to keep writing. If you write, you're a writer. And so to know that and believe that. If I'm writing, I'm a writer. I don't need anything else to tell me that I'm a writer. I don't need an award. I don't need an accolade. I don't need a college. I am a writer because I put pen to paper. I'm on the keyboards. I am a writer. And so to know and believe that. And what story do I choose? I work on a lot of different projects at once, but like my novel, usually I'm only doing like one novel at a time. I think it's the story that's just pulling me the most.
Yeah.
I think you'll have to learn. How do you do that? How do you pick which is going to be this novel?
I told my students it's the one that cries loudest. Yeah.
Love matters. First, I want to echo what Cina just said. Don't ever stop. I think there are two rules. One, you don't stop. Second, there are no rules. So whenever people start telling you, you have to do this and you cannot do that, I wouldn't even say take that with a grain of salt. Just don't take it, because there are no rules. You find out what works for you and you do that thing. For me in 2011, I was already a writer, and I met the late great Jack Ketchum, and I asked him the same question. I was like, how do you pick? And he said, well, I sit with my stories. And I didn't know what he meant at the time. Now that I do that, I realize sometimes I come up with a really great idea and I sit with it. And the next day I'm like, wait, that's Goodfellas. Like, or that's The Exorcist. Like, that's not my idea. So I just let it go and keep thinking about the stuff. But he said, short stories are one night stands. You can have fun with those, but a novel is a marriage. And so now every time an idea comes to me, I remember what Jack Ketchum said, and I'm like, do I want to spend 16 months with these characters in this world, doing this work? Or is this a short story? Or is this one of those things that I will put away, and maybe at some point there's a submission call and I'm like, oh, that would be a perfect 3,000 word short story for that individual anthology. So our work never ends. We're always thinking, we're always coming up with ideas. So you have to set some parameters, like this is what I want to spend a year and a half working on, and then reading and reading again and rereading and editing and rewriting and editing again and reading it again. So it has to be an idea that you're pretty sure you're not going to get tired of it, because you will get tired of it by the end of it.
You know, Gabino, you just added the most brilliant metaphor. I'm gonna steal it. I don't expect it to be a Gabino, but like that's beautiful. You think of the short story as a one night stand. Not that I'm advocating for that, but just saying. And you think of the novel as your novio. Cause you get sick of your novio and your novia and your non-binary friends. I'm just saying, you know, I mean, that's brilliant. That is hardcore brilliant. I love it. I have a question about Spanish because I'm like you. I don't translate my Spanish. And Cina, I don't think you translate your Spanish either. But I think that's a really important political choice to make, and I don't know if you can maybe speak to that.
My well, this novel deals with German, Irish, Polish, Czech immigrants, so there isn't Spanish. I don't think that Detective Rodriguez, I don't think he speaks Spanish in there. But my previous works, I wouldn't translate my Spanish. My next goal, I want to write a poetry collection in Spanish, just in Spanish. That's my next goal. But I wouldn't. I think I would just release it in Spanish.
Yeah, that's hard.
Even translate it
Yeah,
to English,
yeah.
so we'll see. But I don't know. What do you think?
Cool. I remember because I read your first novel, and there was Spanish in it, but I don't remember it being translated.
No.
You know, and then I'm reading. Sorry, I sound like a big nerd because I am. I'm reading the next one, and it's very fluid. I mean, it's also first person point of view, which I love. Not that I don't love third person. I love all points of view, you know. But there's just something more immediate about it, you know. And Gabino too. Like, first of all, props for all the cursing in your book, because I'm like, yes, it's los míos. It's beautiful. I love that because the voice of the character is very rough, you know. I love that. But yeah, I think it's an important political choice for you writers to think about. Because I also know published writers, very successful, that they do the double translation, they'll do the Spanish and then the English. But then I feel like I'm reading it twice and then it annoys the hell out of me. You know, I don't know.
And for President Claus.
I was gonna add something too. This is my new book, which has a wonderful blurb from Cina in it. I don't know Gabino because he was really busy. But
Are you a horror writer?
Yes.
Bro, come on up, man. This is other writers in the audience. Come on out. Just reveal yourself.
I'm getting
From Portland.
Right.
So tell us about your book. Tell us about your book.
Well-
the anthology that you.
Oh, yeah,
Wishing.
Never Whistle at Night.
Never Whistle. So we have the co-editor of Never Whistle at Night here, and then we also have forward for the Devil Gabino who blurb this.
I didn't know you
Yeah, but he did,
were.
yeah.
So tell us about your book.
So, but the language point in that is, and I think it's easier sometimes if you work with a smaller press. So Lanternfish published that one, and there's Gullah language in there. So Gullah, I studied the language down in South Carolina on the Sea Islands. It's its own language. So there's a lot of Gullah in there. Even though I'm talking like a 4-year-old, there's a lot of Gullah in there, but the English is in italics.
Ooh.
And then the Lakota that's in there is untranslated.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
there's
love
all
that.
kinds of good content.
And are you native yourself?
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love it.
And so, you're one of the co-editors of Never Whistle at Night, which has been on the bestseller list for what, 25?
Yeah, this will be, week 25, I think.
25.
What's up?
This one, the Native American short story collection.
Geez, another writer's adventure.
Indigenous dark.
Indigenous darkness.
Oh my gosh,
So
that's
it's all
it.
native writers.
Before you all leave, we gotta get all your socials, your author.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
For Bram Stoker Award.
Bravo, bravissimo.
This is why we need to support like each other.
Small presses and each
Small
other.
presses and each other, because this is where, all the good stuff. Like, so much good work is in here. This is where we meet, and this is where we have community. We have discussions and stuff.
I also own an independent press called Body Blues Press. I don't make money. It's charity press. But it's been such a huge thing for me to publish writers of color, poets, and the thing that is an independently published book. Beautiful.
Lanternfish Press.
Look at that beautiful cover.
Small press, yeah.
I haven't seen it in print yet.
It looks cool.
You're gonna sign it for.
The cover really matters, y'all, for real.
I brought you one, Gabino, but I guess I'm gonna have to mail that. Ain't I?
He
You
thought
got
were
my
gonna-
address.
Yeah.
Let's invite it some other time in the future, brother. Come over, bring it.
Well, I'll bring it to you at Stoker. You guys go.
I'm going, he doesn't know, are you going to Stoker?
Tell them
I'll-
what Stoker is, because they may not know what Stoker is.
Oh, the brand, so the StokerCon is the yearly convention that's hosted by the Horror Writers Association, and so there's a series of, panels and learnings, but the whole purpose of it is to come together in celebration of our colleagues for the Bram Stoker Awards, which is the highest, award.
Badass
in-
She's being modest, it's our Oscars.
It's our
Yeah,
Oscar.
it is the Oscars. It is
These
the
meetings
Oscars.
have one, so it's amazing.
Yeah, so.
Yes, and but hey, not just each have one. First Puerto Rican born writers. And are you the first Latinos to get the Bram Stoker?
Yes.
Oh,
Amazing.
first Latinos. Oh my God.
It was a historic evening. I mean, it was the first Puerto Rican, first Latina to win, and then bam, we had the second Latino to win,
What's
and
up?
for superior achievement in a novel, Gabino, for Devil Takes You Home.
But also too, you
And
won
Shirley
the
Jackson
Shirley
Award.
Jackson,
Yeah.
Shirley
Shirley
Jackson
Jackson.
for your anthology. Tell them about that, Gabino, because that's a big deal.
That's another great club. There's one other author who's won the Stoker and the Shirley Jackson Award for the same novel. That's Stephen Graham Jones, and then there's me. So I think that's like the most.
What's up? What's up?
And also, it's one Latino and a Blackfeet author. So you know.
Nice.
Straight older white men have ruled weird fiction and horror for so long, and then in
Yeah,
this club,
speak to that.
you have a First Nations individual and then a Latino born and raised in a colony. So I think it's a special club. I think we
All
should.
women, all
Yeah.
women. Yeah,
Now we
and I
need
think
the
too,
black
I mean,
woman
that,
to do it again. Yeah.
I apologize. No, that thing is important. I wanted you to speak to that. I bragged on one of my. They're going to talk about racism in the publishing industry. That even today, with so many writers of color and non-traditional, quote unquote, non-traditional writers, whatever that is, I feel like there are a lot of gains that are happening. But what is the industry still heavily a white privilege kind of thing, or what do you think?
What do you think of me?
Very extremely. Like this is
Thank
this
you.
is
Thank
what
you. Speak the truth, brother. Tell them.
Yeah, no, this is what I teach. This is what my workshops are about. I have a series of videos on TikTok. I hope your daughter's not listening because I call them my diversity bullshit videos. So the new report from Lee and Low on diversity, the diversity baseline study came out, and we've made some progress. There's more trans folks working in publishing. There's more Asians. I think there's 0.2% more Blacks working in publishing. Latinos, we went down from around 5%. Now Latinos make up about 4% of publishing. So whatever story you want to tell, if you're a Latino or Latina or Latinx or whatever you want to call yourself, your story matters.
Here, brother. Here.
Trying to push it because it is. The majority of publishing is straight and white. The only light at the end of the tunnel on that regard is that most of it right now is female. And I've found that usually, even if they're older, women are a little bit more accepting. Maybe it's feminism, maybe it's something else, but they're more accepting when it comes to that. Like all my editors, my editor at NPR, my editor at the Boston Globe, they're always been women. And so they're like, no, give us some queer narratives, give us some BIPOC narratives. We want some of that stuff.
Nice.
But there's a lot of battle yet.
Hey, and congrats on that NPR gig. That and the Boston Globe. Come on now, that is huge. That is huge.
Good.
Hey, no, that's brilliant. And you know, the other thing too is, I know that there's this ideal, and I gotta tell my students the truth, that all the time, right? Like first in your bubbles, no, that being a full-time writer is a lot of work. And you also work full-time as well, besides being a full-time writer. And I don't know if you can speak to that. This is what I tell my students straight up. Stephen King, J.K. Rowling's are not the rule, they're the exception. The rest of us are going to have to hustle, whether you're traditionally published or not. That's just reality, right? And I don't know if you can speak to that. How hard is the gig?
Well, I have 2 children with special needs.
Yes.
I have 3 dogs. I have my husband.
Amazing
here.
husband.
I work full time. I'm PhD, ABD. One day I'll finish my dissertation.
Well,
But it's hard. It's very hard. I have to take time off of work. So this is my, they're both, like, I get 2 weeks vacation and it's already accounted for. So
You
this
need
is
to
1
unionize,
week.
girl. You need to unionize.
This is 1 week, and then I have like StokerCon and a few other things, and so. When, like, this week, I'm pretty much, existing off of coffee, like, I don't know, like, I was just in Austin with
He
Gabino.
was with Gabino.
And then last night I was at Exile, then
Which
I'm
went
going,
very well.
which was good, and then I'm going to Bucket of Blood, then tomorrow I'm going to New York with Alex Segura and Cassandra, I don't know where I'm going, like, that's why I have him to help me. And so, and then I'll be like in Minneapolis, and so it's a lot. I have to, when I do the stuff like this, I have to cram it all into a very short period of time. And I'm in my 40s, and so I have to consider my physical and my mental health.
This is true.
And my brain is sometimes not as sharp as it was because
You're doing a lot.
I'm doing so much, and like weeks like this, I'm sleeping very little. I'm like apologizing to the audience. Like,
But you look great. You're going here and beautiful. That's a chula. Like in social media, it's chulísima. Gabino, you're cute too. No, my brother, but you know.
Thank you. Never been called Q before, so I'm appreciating it.
So I think I do. This isn't. I do a lot. I'm working full time. I have a family. I write. I mean, I just got my edits from my editor.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
So that it's a lot of.
Was.
I don't have free time. I don't sit there like we were just talking about this, and
You don't watch movies for fun?
I don't watch TV. I don't watch like if I have any free time, it's like my fun is research. Like I'm reading a book. I'm always in the car I'm driving here. He's driving and I'm reading a book.
Yeah.
Because I'm always reading. I'm always writing. I'm always doing something. There is no free time, and so it is. This isn't. I don't think of it as a sacrifice. I think of this is my life. This is what all I want to do is read, write, my family, and that's it.
I love it. That's brilliant. Brilliant. Follow that, Gabino. You know?
No, I remember being a kid and hearing that very cliche, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. It was like, I had to do this thing today at 11 in the morning. Do you know who I asked permission to do this? Fucking no one. I travel when I want to. I stay up at all hours of the day. As long as the stuff is taken care of in the house and the kid is at school and he goes to baseball practice and we spend time together, I'm good. I don't need to go into a cubicle again. I don't want to dress up. I don't want to ask permission to go to an event. I don't want to depend on anybody if they're in a good mood to let me take a Friday off so I can do a book event with an author friend. So yeah, it was 14 years. Like before I moved to the US, I worked construction. I was a research assistant. I've worked at an insurance company. I taught high school for 2 years. Like I've done it all, and all of it sucked. And this is the thing. This is the only thing that I'm good at. So screw everything else. Like it's a lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but I'm not going down into the mines and getting black lung. Like I'm not gonna complain about making stories up at my house, wearing shorts and drinking coffee. So yeah, it's a lot of work, but you do it with a smile on your face, unlike all those other jobs that are soul sucking.
There's also don't forget, there's also the Charles Bukowski quote, find what you love and let it kill you.
Let it kill you, yes.
And I feel like what we're doing, I mean, everybody has a right to do what they want, but I told Jared this yesterday. Well, I was completely like incoherent and tired, and he's driving, and I was like, "But what we're doing, this is bigger than us."
Yeah.
I feel like
think
what
so
we're
too.
doing is important work, and I was reminding myself like this is what we're doing. This is gonna be remembered.
Yep.
Not working in a cubicle for somebody else. This is gonna be remembered.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. I love that for sure. Yeah, this has been so inspiring. I'm inspired, yo. I don't know about you. Like I'm gonna go home and work on my novel, even though I'm sick.
Yeah.
Al, do you have any more questions?
No, just what you said, it is inspiring. What you're doing is important.
Absolutely,
And
it is
and it's
all about.
something you said earlier to me too about being, we're talking about horror, but I think for both of your work, it's not just horror, because I recommended your work to so many people. They go, what's the genre? And I said, well, it's a lot of things.
That's right.
There's a lot of, yeah, it might be horror, but it's like thriller and crime and myth and
Body
fairy
horror.
tale, so many
Yep.
different things. So I just want to tell you guys that it's amazing how you put so many different, you blend everything together.
Right.
And maybe a good question about that, do you do that intentionally? Or is that just something that comes like naturally to you, to blend so many different things together?
For me, it's natural to blend a lot because I get bored if it's just like formulaic. I want something different. I want something exciting, and I want to throw everything in there. And my challenge is to make it work. That's me.
Yeah.
I was shout out to librarians, first of all.
Here, yeah.
I was not a good kid, so I was always getting sent to the library when teachers were tired of dealing with me. And the librarian, her name was Esperanza, which I think is very poetic. We called her Epi. She would just let me browse, and I found a collection by Horacio Quiroga, and I fell in love with horror. Like I was maybe 11 or 12. And then in my early teens, I discovered crime. And I was like, looking at the barrel of a gun, that's fear, that's tension, that's anxiety. Someone looking for you because they want to kill you, that's really scary. Turns out that horror and noir thrillers, crime, they kind of share a black heart. And I was like, why aren't more people mixing them together? So that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be, I wanted to be the guy mixing those. And then I kind of realized I'm really into religion and syncretism and, being born and raised in the Caribbean. That's all I know, like voodoo, mayombe, mesa blanca, santeria, all that good stuff. And then someone told me, no, that's we call that magical realism. And I was like, well, sure, call it what you want. I want it in my books too. So yeah. At some point, it's like cooking, you want to put everything together very nicely on the same plate. And if you eat the same thing all the time, you grow bored. So I think authors like Cina and I were just like, this is all the stuff that I like, and I'm always going to put fragments of it together. And sure, I'm sure that you lose some purists, like this is not crime fiction because there's demons and ghosts and dark stuff. But you can go read your James Patterson if you want. Like I don't have to change it for you. Just mix it up.
I love it. But see, I wanna one of the things I tell my students, you have to do your research. It's not just about writing. And both you and Gabino clearly have done just a fantastic job of research. You in particular, the history. I love reading Cina's work because she does a lot of Chicago history, and I just you get soaked in it. It's just beautiful. I love the Bela Lugosi, all that, because I was a big fan of that growing up too. But I don't know if you could maybe speak to what your process is. I know you talked about researching in the car or whatnot.
Yeah. I was a journalist by trade. That's my undergrad was in journalism. And then when I started working as a journalist, I realized, wow, I'm not going to be able to pay bills. So then I went into marketing. And
you pay the bills.
Well, that's like my day job. I do marketing research. And so I never thought I'd be good at math, but I guess I'm really good at math. So I do stats all day long.
Nice.
And so I love research. I like having, like, I like that my work is grounded in reality. It's grounded in something. I think that makes it that much more terrifying.
Yes. Yes.
So, I know I take a lot of liberties because it's fiction ultimately, but there's still a base of reality in it.
Yeah. How about you, Gabino?
I think you have to know what you're talking about. So if you're not a gun person, go ahead and research guns. If you're going to be writing about violence and you grew up like me in the 80s watching action movies where someone gets shot with a shotgun and they fly 12 feet in the air, that's not how physics works. So you might want to learn stuff. And then also when you immerse yourself in a world that's not entirely yours, it's good to know. For The Devil Takes You Home, I spent 2 weeks learning how to liquefy meth so you can bring it across the border under truck fuel as a liquid. I think there's one short line in the book about how they bring in the drugs. But if the book didn't work, I could go into the business of liquefying meth and getting it across the border. So research always pays. Like it gives you a fallback plan. It allows you to know you can answer questions later. So, yeah. Stay in school though. But yeah, stay in school, but learn as much as you can.
Their parents are gonna ask them what they learned. They're like,
To the border of the.
Thing, just learn.
Your search history has to be
Oh.
vastly.
The FBI checking in.
I look at a lot of crime scene photos, like whatever could be public, and so if you look at my like search history, you'll find like for the Forgotten Sisters, you'll find like loaded bodies and autopsy photographs. And so I do look at a lot of.
You're on a lot of lists. That's what you are.
Or you got another one, looking up, mutilated corpses. That's, you wanna do something about that? Nah, that's the office, leave it alone.
But you know, I worry about that too sometimes, and I use incognito, and sometimes I'm like, you know what, stop being such a wuss bag. But then I'll like go to the library, and use the computer at the library just in case.
I look at, I mean, I pull up a lot of interesting stuff. Like they're out of print right now. I wrote Santa Muerte and the Missing. Those are my young adult horror novels, but they went out of print. And then for the Missing, I was looking up cartel videos of them like putting bodies into like vats in the blue vats and disintegrating them. So I would look for that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Where do you start when you're looking for like morbid images? How do you start researching and finding them?
She wants to know how to find the morbid images.
I mean, I've tried, and I also get that.
Yeah,
I
right.
can never find anything that's like clear enough, so I've never like for research purposes. So that's
Just
why
hit
I
her
haven't
up on
written
social
anything.
media. She'll tell you where to go.
I mean, I do look. I've looked at like I do have some books at home. I think Death to Dust, like some medical journals as well that will describe some, from an like I have books on autopsies, what an autopsy is and that process. And so I think
That's awesome.
it just varies what specifically I will look up. So like for a drowning victim, a drowning victim, I would go to whatever medical journals or documents that I have, and I would look up what does long-term submersion do to a body, or I would type that in, long-term submersion to a human body, and then you can pull up like academic journals or articles. Sometimes you can pull up autopsy photos that whatever's published.
Or you could actually interview. I tend to interview people a lot because not that I'm lazy, I'm just busy. And a lot of times the content experts tell you things you never even thought about besides the books too, so that's a possibility. Like when you tell somebody you're working on a novel or a story, all of a sudden it's like, yes, let me tell you all that. Instant, I'm telling you, you know. Do you interview people like that? Yeah, man.
People, I think that's the journalist in me that I love talking to people and asking people stories. For Forgotten Sisters, we met a Chicago teacher who was like a fifth generation Chicagoan, and she had a family member that was at the historic event that I wrote about.
Oh
And so,
wow.
like, yes,
Yes.
exactly. I was able to ask her about these types of things, and so talking to people is community. Talking
Yes,
to people, getting
absolutely.
to know who you never know who you know and what type of information they know.
That's
So
right.
It's always nice to be able to reach out to people, writers organizations. Like I'm an HWA Horror Writers Association, but I'm also an MWA, the Mystery Writers Association of America. And so if I need to like connect to somebody in law enforcement, because I needed to know specifically what their dive suits look like for like any water rescues, I was able to email like our group there. Can someone put me in touch with law enforcement locally that I can ask them what do these uniforms, what are the uniform? What does the dive rescue look like? What's the Marine unit? Where is it based out of? Navy Pier. And so,
And then do they cost a lot of money to be part of those associations?
their student membership.
Yeah.
There's
Cool.
Students like 25, we're like.
Hey,
70 bucks
there
or
you
something.
go, there you go, resources.
there's scholarships as well. There's diversity scholarships for HWA as well.
Beautiful. Well, listen, we're 5 minutes out, and if anybody has any questions in the chat or any parting questions, because we're gonna give her some time to sign books. I see you brought your copies. And I'm gonna just draw names. I'm sorry, y'all. I have the back. She gave me signed copies. My husband couldn't find them, so I'm gonna have to gift them to you later. So I apologize for that. But yeah, this has been amazing. I always say, look, think of this as your second home. It is such a huge honor to have Gabino and Cina here, and just wonderful, you know, that just amazing. I don't know. I've had a great time. I don't know about y'all. This has been amazing. And thank you, husband, for supporting, and thank you, Hal, for co-moderating. Much appreciation. So, but let's just, you know, anybody have any parting questions before we give them a huge round of applause?
You got Leela, you got Pedro on there. I see them.
Oh, another famous person. What's up?
I did 5 books, and then I'm gonna go eat, and then I have an event at Bucket of Blood tonight. So the book tour continues.
And if you want, take down my email. I am gonna I'm trying to coordinate a signing for her at Barbara's Bookstore. Which, by the way, if you have not been to Barbara's Bookstore, they're in the basement of Macy's. They have a beautiful Gaza area. They have a women's history mug. It's just gorgeous. A huge children's book section. I've taken my students there, and they bought books. Because that's what we do. But I'll let you know when that is. Probably in a couple of weeks or whenever Cina's not busy. So, and it's really good to support this independent bookstore because Barbara's Bookstore is just amazing politically. It's all over the nation, but really great. So that's coming up too outside of the college. And then Paul Tremblay is coming in a few weeks, not in person, via Zoom. Super treat, amazing dude. I call him Pablito behind his. I give you all nicknames, but I call him Pablito behind his back. And then we have Empire in Transition. We're gonna have the San Francisco Poet Laureate coming via Zoom, and a couple of other phenomenal poets for the last event. And then I got people lined up for the summer and the fall, you know. But I'm trying to get grants and money from the city because the city don't pay, I pay, you know what I'm saying? And it's gotta stop that. But it is such a huge honor and a privilege. And listen, it's always beautiful to see you. And Gabino, you and I are gonna be besties. I can feel it. We're gonna be best friends on Twitter. So and all that TikTok. Well, let's give him a huge round of applause. Another wonderful thing you can do for any writer is to write a favorable book review, because that's how they will grow their reader base.
Yeah.
And you know, and if it's not going to be nice, don't say anything. Just let it go. You bought the book. You did your job. You know, totally. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're gonna get Gabino. I go to Texas a lot. I'm gonna get you a beautiful goodie bag. I'm gonna drop it off at your house. I'm not a weirdo. You know, cheaper.
Oh, no, we can go out to eat.
What?
We can go out to eat. Yeah, I'll put the dog away.
Thank you. Thank you.